just want to ask you,
you should talk
do you still support the two-state solution? Because I don't think that's a solution anymore. Because because Palestine is almost done. What do you think about that?
Okay. Actually, I had a conversation with the people who invited me to speak here on that topic. I think that there's a problem. There's a problem when it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict of people personalizing it and turning the question into, do you support? What do you support? Do you support one state or you support two states? As if politics were like a Chinese menu. You take one from column A and two from column B. That's not what politics is about, in my understanding at any rate. It has nothing to do with what I support. Personally, if you were to ask me, I don't support two states. I don't support one state. I support no states. I don't see states as making any sense in the world, especially today, since most of the problems confronting humanity, whether it's global warming or it's an economy that's that's dysfunctional, these are all global problems. So how can you solve global problems with a world that's partitioned between states? So if you ask me personally, I don't support two states, I don't support one state, I support a world without any states. But politically that has no meaning. Everybody in this room knows it, because it has no application given the current balance of forces in the world. There's just no support for that idea. So politics, if it's not about what I think or you think, what is politics about? And my understanding is politics is about, you look at the balance of forces in the world, you look where public opinion is in the world, and then you try to extract, given the current balance of forces, the maximum amount of justice that's possible in a given situation. That's politics. You see, what's the furthest you can go without losing public support? And so using that as the criterion, what's the furthest you can go without losing public support and just turning into another mindless cult? What's the furthest you can go? Let's ask ourselves a certain question. The young man asked, do you support two states? Well, for me, that's not the relevant question. The relevant question I ask myself is the following. I look at the world today. The world consists of about 195 nation states. How many nation states in the world today? How many support one state? Is there a single nation state in the world that supports one state? Don't say Iran, because Iran is on record supporting two states. Is there a single nation state in the world today supporting one state? Answer, none. Is there a single radical movement having a real base supporting one state? Syriza in Greece supports two states. The Podemos in Spain, I'm taking the far left now, as far as you can go without going over a cliff. Podemos in Spain supports international law, two states. There's no support for one state. So if you're advocating a goal which has zero support, I don't think that's politics. That's a cult. A cult sort of defies the world. It thumbs its nose at the world and says, we don't care what the world says, this is what we believe. But that's not a political movement. So I don't see the basis of supporting a goal which is as realistic as my goal of abolishing states in the world. The Latin American states, which, as I say, redeemed themselves during Operation Protective Edge, they're all on record supporting two states. So what is the sense of advocating a goal which has exactly zero possibility of realization now or any time in the near future? That doesn't make sense to me.
First of all, I would like to thank you for the work that you do in spreading awareness about Palestine and Israel, because very few people do that today. And my question for you is, do you think the BDS movement is an effective way to get Israel to change its policy?
Okay, that was, first of all, thank you for the kind words. That was a clearly stated question. I'm not sure if everybody in the room knows what BDS is. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, BDS stands for Boycott Divestment Sanctions, and it has a national leadership, an international leadership, and it's registered a large number of successes, especially, but not exclusively, especially on college campuses, but not exclusively on college campuses. And as some people know, I've expressed some reservations about BDS, and I'll just go through them very quickly now. But whatever reservations I express have to be put into a larger context. Number one, the larger context is they've been remarkably successful, the BDS. They've shown enormous energy, enormous organizational skill. It's been very impressive. It tells you something about what a small group of people can do if they're organized, they're committed, they're intelligent. So I humbly acknowledge that fact, because I have one credo in life. I never argue with facts. And I'm not going to argue with the successes that BDS has achieved. Quite the contrary. They should be honored. So that's, I have to put it in that, what my following remarks. Number two, of course I support boycotts, divestment, and sanctions. To not support it, I think, is completely hypocritical. Of course, those are perfectly legitimate tactics. My reservations with BDS are basically twofold. Number one, BDS is not just a tactic or tactics. It's not just boycotts, divestment, sanctions. BDS is also a political platform. They have a platform. And their platform says that they are anchored in international law, which I agree with. I think the starting point of any solidarity movement has to be international law. And then they say under international law they have the right to self-determination, which I think is correct. And then they say from that they derive three other rights of Palestinians, namely ending the occupation, implementing the right of return, and equality of Palestinian citizens in Israel. And that all seems to me to be correct. But as everybody knows, with rights come obligations. With rights come responsibilities. Whatever right you claim for yourself comes with an obligation or a responsibility to others. That's perfectly plain to everybody in this room. If you have a right to walk at the green, it's because you have an obligation or responsibility to stop at the red light. Now, BDS says when it comes to Israel, it takes no position. But that to me doesn't make any coherent sense. Israel is a state under international law. If you say that your foundation is international law, then international law is a package deal. You can't pick and choose those laws which you like and then claim to be agnostic on those laws that you don't like. It's as if you were running through a red light, a cop stops you, and then you say, well, I have the right to go at the green. And then the cop says, but wait, you were passing at the red. And you reply, but I don't take a position on the red. No. If you have a right to go at the green, you have an obligation to stop at the red. BDS claims certain rights for Palestinians, which in my opinion are correct. Those are rights under international law. But then it has to also acknowledge the reciprocal rights of Israel to self-determination and statehood. You might not like that, but that's the law. You have two options. One is you can say to hell with the law. I don't agree with the law. That's fine. That's a position. The other is you can take the obligations and the rights that come with international law. But what you can't do is selectively choose what aspects of the law you like and what aspects of the law you don't like, and just take the ones that you like. That's not the law. That's what Israel always does. They used to say to the Palestinians, you have to recognize us. You have to recognize us. But the Palestinians said, but then you have to recognize us. It has to be reciprocal. And Israel said no. It just wanted the rights that it claimed, but it refused its obligations and its responsibilities. And I'm way too old to be playing these kinds of hypocritical games. First of all, I can't defend it in public. I have to believe what I'm saying. And I'm not going to defend what I don't believe. And I don't believe that you can pick and choose when it comes to the law. It's incoherent, and it won't convince anybody. And as a practical matter, in my opinion, there's a tendency among the BDS people, with all of their enthusiasms, which I understand and I think deserve respect, there's this kind of implicit notion that you can liberate Palestine with BDS. And I think that's just not a serious prospect. The antecedent of BDS was the anti-apartheid sanctions movement. South Africa was not liberated by the sanctions movement. The sanctions movement helped. But South Africa was, first and foremost, if it was able to end apartheid, it was because there was a mass democratic movement in South Africa. I'm not a religious person, but I certainly go by the credo, God helps those who help themselves. If the Palestinians themselves don't engage in mass resistance, and right now they've pretty much given up, I can understand why. So many years of hopes dashed, so much corruption. It's a very hard thing for people to have lived through all the hopes, whether it was the first Intifada, then the Oslo Accord, all the hopes, all the sacrifice, all the death, and all the destruction, and to get nothing for it. And so Palestinians have become very cynical, and basically the attitude is every man for himself. They've given up on collective struggle. But in the absence of a collective struggle, a mass democratic movement, all the BDS in the world cannot liberate Palestine. We can help. We can play a critical role in assisting, but the prime mover has to be the Palestinian people themselves, and we shouldn't entertain the illusion that Palestine can be liberated from the outside. And frankly, I don't think it's a good thing if it was. It has to be a product of your own effort. Otherwise, it's just going to be snatched away from you. You have to find the strength to free yourself, and that same strength that enabled you to free yourself will also give you the strength to be on guard when those people come along who want to steal your victory. So I don't think it's possible, and I also don't think it's desirable that we here should liberate Palestine. No, we can help, and we should do the most we can. But it's got to come from there. Whether it will come, I don't know, but I still remain hopeful that if the Palestinians get their act together, if they find a leadership worthy of them and worthy of their struggle, that I still believe we can win. Thank you.